In this video, I want to show you something called interceptors. Now, interceptors are actually quite difficult to explain. So let me just, instead of like spending too much time actually explaining it, just simply create one. If I now open up Hyperlambda here, I choose modules, I create a new folder here. I call it tutorials_02, for instance. Then I have a module folder here where I can add a file. Now, if I add a file and I call it interceptor.hl, then actually this becomes a special file. And like everything else in Magic, everything is by convention. So, I mean, the file name here is literally what declares it to be an interceptor. Now, if I write data.connect here now, and I connect to the CRM database, and then I write .interceptor inside of this data connect invocation, then I add another file called foo.get.hl, and from within here, this file, I can do data.select select all from status. Now, typically, and then I can return :x minus / save the file and invoke it with F5. Typically, you would assume that this would throw a null reference exception because, I mean, where's my database connection, right? I don't have a database connection here. However, I actually do, because my database connection here comes from the interceptor. The interceptor functions such that it takes the entirety of the result of parsing this into a Lambda object, then it takes that Lambda object and it replaces it with this thing. So the best way to actually imagine this is to write lambda to hyper :x :dot and then do log.info :x minus, save it, invoke the file, execute it, go back to our log now, which point we will see what happens. Here you see I have my data.connect node, and then I have the log invocation I just created just now. Then inside of here I have the data.select invocation. So my data.select invocation actually has a database connection because it's kind of like, I don't know what you even want to call it, inheriting it or something from the interceptor file itself. Now, this allows us to write super dry code where, for instance, if you have one folder where every single file inside of that folder needs to do something that's like the exact same thing, then we can put that code into an interceptor.hl file. Yet again, the file name is semantic and super important. And then we can have that logic as shared logic between like every single invocation, every single file that exists within that folder. And this also works recursively. So if I create a new folder now and I call it foo, and then inside of foo, I now write active folder, new file, foo2.get.hl. If I now copy this code here now, and then I go into foo2 and I save it and I click F5, you see it's working recursively. So I still have access to my interceptor. Why? Well, I mean, the foo folder doesn't have an interceptor, right? So it looks upwards in the hierarchy. Tutorial2, which is its parent folder again, has an interceptor, so it will use that one. If I create another interceptor inside of this guy now, interceptor.hl, and from here I can, for instance, do data.connect ista-crm .interceptor. Hopefully these are semantically different enough for us to be able to actually see the effect here. So now let's try this guy. Remember, we had two CRM databases and they actually had different structures and different status fields. Okay, so now you see status ID 1. If I invoke this guy, you see name instead. Why? Because this file is using this interceptor. This interceptor connects to ISA CRM, while this file is using this interceptor, and this interceptor connects to only CRM. So this allows you to write super dry code. Of course, dry being an acronym implies don't repeat yourself, which is like an overarching philosophy in good software development and software architecture. So anyways, that was it for this video.